Good to see you, John. Thanks for coming on with us. Let's begin with this. What it's like for you to come back to the organization where it all began for you as a first-round pick back in 1980.
You mean another first-round pick gone bad?
Yes,
No,
exactly.
I laughed. Would Frank Cashin consider it a success? You get Darryl Strawberry #1. He had a pretty good career. Tough life off the field. But then Billy Beane becomes a GM. The other guy becomes a coach. Is that considered a success? So anyway, but I always my career, it never turned out the way I wanted to as a player. And then I got into the coaching end of it. And my dream was to get to coach in the big leagues with the Mets. That never happened. And of course, I went a different route. And so this all developed pretty quick here. But when I had the opportunity, after I met Carlos, I would love to do this. So maybe it was meant to be. We'll see.
Well, 11 years as the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, a couple of different stints. I'm interested to know, John, you were the guy calling the shots in Toronto, and here you're going to be standing next to the guy who's calling the shots. What's that adjustment going to be like for you? Have you thought about how you're going to go about this job as compared to when you were the manager in Toronto?
Well, you know what? After I got fired the first time in Toronto, I went over to Kansas City, was bench coach for Trey Hillman for a year and a half, and then Ned Yost. When Kansas City, was on the verge of, when they beat you guys, a couple of years, beat you guys in the World Series.
Yes, indeed.
So I've done that before, and it all depends really what the manager wants, what Carlos wants, because both those guys wanted different things. And really, it's a sounding board. When my first big league managing job, it's still the same game of baseball, but things happen quick, and it's good to have somebody next to you, I think, with some experience. But then, Carlos is going to make the decisions. But, if he wants advice, I'll give him advice. But I'll kind of keep an eye on, I'm sure, the peripheral stuff that's going on in the game to keep him abreast of some of those things. But it all depends on what he wants, and we'll see how it all develops.
John, it's Andy Martino. So on that same vein with the bench coach job, we're starting to see a title that's been around a long time evolve a little in the game. There are teams now that don't have a bench coach. There are teams that have an associate manager, whatever that means, quality control coaches. You just said it. The game of baseball hasn't necessarily changed as much. Maybe it's just the titles. But with the evolving game, does the bench coach job actually look a little different than it did, maybe even when you were in Kansas City or prior to that in your experience in the game?
Well, there's no doubt the game's changed. It's heavy, really heavy analytics. And so much is based on numbers. But numbers have always been part of the game, just not to this extreme. So, really, yeah, I'm sure I'll have a stat sheet and all the info in front of me. And if Carlos needs something, I'll figure it out and tell him. But it is the game. I don't know if it's a little more complicated now, or maybe we've complicated it more now. But there's so much more information. It's definitely going to be a little different than when I was, working for Ned Yost. There's no question about that. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I think, I'm good with numbers. I always was good with numbers, but I also think it's very important. You got to be an old school guy that has some common sense and can watch a game too, and let that a lot of times tell you what's going on too. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Hey, John, Anthony DiComo here. I know you didn't know Carlos Mendoza all that well when you first started talking to him. What were your first impressions, and what have you learned about him since coming on as bench coach?
Yeah, I knew who he was. And, he was a bench coach there in New York with the Yanks for 4 or 5 years. So he's got to be a sharp guy. I knew that. But what happened was when I saw that he got hired, with the Mets here, first thing came to my mind is, maybe they'll be looking for somebody, as a bench coach with some experience, because I was looking to get back into the game, right? And then it was just kind of a passing thought. And then my old bench coach, DeMarlo Hale, called me one day and said, because he knew Carlos, and said, "Can I pass your number on to him?" So Carlos called me, and we hit it off right away. You can always tell right away, whether you like somebody or you got some respect for them, or you like the way they talk. And so we hit it off, and of course, then I talked to David Stearns and some other guys in the front office, and that's really how it all developed. It wasn't like I pursued the job, but I'm couldn't be more excited to get back in the game right now. But I can tell you, Carlos is a straight shooter. He looks like he loves to have fun, and I think the players are going to end up loving it. I really, really think so. But it's not easy taking over and managing the first time in the big leagues, especially in a city like New York. So hopefully I can help him out.
I do want to ask you, John, about a couple of things in your past when you were with the Mets back in the early 80s. And you hit one home run in the big leagues. I think it came in 1986, am I right, against the Phillies? And wasn't it off Michael Jackson? Not the guy who was behind Thriller,
Yeah.
but what do you remember all these years later about that moment?
Well, I tell you what, yeah, when you only hit one, it's hard to forget it, right? Actually, I had a pretty good game that night. We pounded it pretty good. I almost hit the cycle. I had two doubles, a home run, and of course a single. But one of the doubles was a ground rule double in the right field corner. And I could actually run a little bit back then, and it hit that right field line and kicked into the stands. And if it hit in that corner, we had that kind of high corner down there at the old Shea Stadium, and rattled around a little bit. I'm on third base. I'm not at the cycle, but yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of playing time for me back then. So I remember some of the good things. That was obviously that was my best game I ever had. You know, and Ronnie Darling pitched. He threw a gem. So yeah, it's hard to forget it when you've only hit one. But you better not hit one, I guess, right?
And did you get a World Series ring in '86? Were you the bullpen catcher in '86?
Yeah. You know, I came up in I think it was August 1st. Gary had played. Carter was playing first base one day, and he dove for a ball and broke his thumb. So I got called up from down there in Tidewater, Norfolk. And stayed the 2 months with him, and then they kept me around for the playoffs. I wasn't on the active roster, obviously, but you know, I caught the bullpen and you know, got a taste of all that and saw a lot of great things happen. So yeah, but yeah, I was you know, when the old Bill Buckner play happened, I was down there and warming the guy up in the bullpen, and so yeah, pretty good memories. You know, and the good team won. I don't know if you can say the good guys won, but the right team won.